Listing the progression of the planet Jupiter and the Sun through the signs of the zodiac in order to help evaluate the progression of the 52-year cycle of the Aztec Xiwa Puelli is an important source of information due to the four-fold nature of the natural Western zodiac as it stands in relation to the four year-bearers signs of the Aztec year count. For that matter, we may come to find that indeed there is an applicable alignment to be found between the Western zodiac, the Chinese zodiac, and as well as the Aztec year cycle through the three modes of astrology known as the cardinal, fixed, and the mutable. Affixing the nature of these three Western astrological modes to the popular Chinese zodiac also then can assist in assimilating the active characteristics of the Chinese year sign, although this probably wasn't officially ever done in the Western astrological sense within the traditional study of Chinese astrology that we know of. Continuing with this essay, we will now begin the investigation of the meanings attached to the traditional Chinese interpretations of the 12-fold animal zodiac. For an accentuated effect, I have, as the author of these interpretations, selected the most extreme versions relating to the perspectives on the 12 Chinese animal signs. And like my interpretations of the 12 zodiac signs, these may be subject to some degree of refinement that will be brought about through the extensive and ongoing learning process. In retrospect, I have noticed that it is hard to pin down the characteristics of the immediate personality through the commonplace prospects of general human relations. These roles and modes are obviously devices for day-to-day services that help bring form and consistency for the momentous aspects of relationships found between humans and their interactive environments. The hard part is getting beyond the immediate community role and into the personal emotional reactions and attitudes that often trigger physical action between people. The Chinese zodiac has often been noted for its incredible likeness to human habits and characteristics, and is an excellent tool for which to analyze the astronomical 12-year cycle. The Chinese calendar. The 12-fold similarities between the Western zodiac and the Chinese zodiac might lead one to ask which system came first. In truth, the two systems probably have a consistent point of origin within the ancient prehistoric world that will forever remain unknown to us. Some would expect that the origins of the Chinese system are well documented, but the reality of the matter is far less informative. There has been speculation on a possible ancient Turkish origin of this 12-fold animal system, since this animal circle is also known to the Anatolian shepherds in remote parts of Turkey even to this day. The possibility is that it would have then later arrived into the Asian Orient, but this argument would naturally be disputed by Chinese traditionalists. As far as Derek Walters is concerned, the best hypothesis would be, in his opinion, that this 12-fold Chinese animal cycle should have its origin in northern Central Asia. He is the author of The Complete Guide to Chinese Astrology, where this idea has been disputed on page 63 of that book. In any case, it is well obvious that the 12-fold animal cycle must have had been distributed throughout the Asian and Anatolian regions via ancient trade routes. To students of Asiatic astronomical studies, it is well known that the Chinese zodiac is a compass and a clock for the hours and directions of the sun's passage, and of course a year cycle as well. The year cycle in particular is in fact fundamentally related to the planet Jupiter. However, it is also well known that the ancient version of the Chinese calendar was different, and not as integrated with the number 12 symbolism. This ancient Chinese calendar also included a moon cycle that was measured on a system of 28 lunar mansions, and as well as other calendaric counting methods that featured the concept of 10 heavenly stems and 12 earthly branches, that measured the days and the years by multiples of 120, and which is now called the sexagenary cycle. In an effort to conserve time, however, the various intricate parts and history of the Chinese calendar will not be explained at any great length or depth here. Instead, we will simply focus on the aspect of the planet Jupiter as the foundation of the 12-year cycle, which then became the 12-fold animal cycle of the Chinese zodiac. The manner in which this was done was no doubt the result of extensive astronomical observations on the part of the ancient Chinese. An important fundamental aspect of their astronomic conceptualization of earthly directions is accounted for within four massive quadrant sky constellations, which in turn systematically corresponded to the four earthly directions, and the four seasons of the solar year, and which also included four corresponding colors as well. These four massive constellations consisted of these characters. Number 1, the spring green dragon of the eastern direction. Number 2, the winter black turtle of the northern direction. Number 3, the autumn white tiger of the western direction. And number 4, the summer vermilion red bird of the southern direction. These four massive quadrant sky constellations are each made up of 7 lesser star groups that compose collectively the 28 lunar mansions, which the moon passes through monthly upon the ecliptic. However, the natural passage of the monthly moon phases passes through these constellations in an east, north, west, south pattern, which is so familiar to the Mesoamerican cosmology and calendaristic. This strange inversion causes the astronomic east-west correlations to be in an opposition to their earthly direction counterparts, and thus the matter is confusing. However, it was indeed the ancient astronomers' business to both contend with and understand these mathematical inversions, which come about as a result of mapping the heavens. The conversion of the astronomical star groups to the seasons and finally with the earthly directions is an important aspect of traditional astrological theory found in both ancient China and Mesoamerica as well. Furthermore, if the 28 lunar mansions each had 28 separate fixed star lodges that the moon passed through monthly, then it would only be logical that a relevant set of 12 stellar lodges would be fixed in accordance with the 12-year cycles of Jupiter. This 12-year cycle then would fit into the relevant corresponding sets of seasons, directions, and colors as well. Thus, the association of the Jupiter cycle with the Chinese compass of time and space and its colors. Although there is an inherent discrepancy to the relationship of the more rapid pace of Jupiter to the 12-year cycle, this set of fixed 12 stellar lodges might as well generally turn out to be the 12 bright star constellations of the popular Western zodiac. But, however, this conclusion is not an insistence that any part of the 12-year animal cycle should resemble or be derived from any of those traditional zodiological star groups, but only an insistence that Jupiter's passing through them was an important form of timekeeping. As the author of this essay, my belief is that the symbols of the animal cycle were indeed derived from even larger and more ancient full sky star images perceived by the ancient stargazers that were then later condensed as symbols into the 12-year animal cycle. One of the more obvious renditions of one of these massive full sky images would include the resemblance of the path of the Milky Way to the traditional image of the Chinese fire dragon, which is the 5th sign in the animal cycle. Of course, being the 5th sign, the dragon may indeed have a strong correlation as well to the constellation of Draco found at the central 5th direction of universal rotation in the North Celestial Pole near the North Star. In order to examine and become associated with full sky constellations, I highly recommend that the listener purchase Thomas Filsinger's Glow-in-the-Dark Map of the Universe, still published by Celestial Arts for over 25 years now. The origin of the full sky constellations that comprise of the 12-fold animal cycle shall remain to be elucidated at another time within a more in-depth project. For that matter, it should be kept in mind that the Chinese astrological year cycle is one that has been composed out of great mathematical mastery, and which has been compiled over the many centuries throughout the millennia. Here in this particular project, I will again only be covering the definitions to the 12 animal signs in order to get around to the principal task of elucidating the Aztec year cycle, which in fact has never been done sufficiently to date. Therefore, we will begin with the first sign of the northern direction of the rat and continue on with the second sign of the ox and so forth. The rat is said to open up the Chinese year cycle within that particular tradition. However, it is also true that in the Tibetan tradition that the year of the cat, which is situated in the east, opens up the year cycle instead. There are always discrepancies between various astrological traditions. However, as can be seen, the painting has been colored in accordance with Chinese directional colors. Yet because the painting comprises of 3 rabbits within the Aztec year cycle, it was decided that it was more aesthetically functional to include the Tibetan cat year symbol in place of the more popular Chinese-Japanese rabbit year symbol. In the opinion of the author, the 2 symbols of both cat and rabbit describe 2 distinct aspects of the natives born within those years. Most people feel this is acceptable for the particular kind of discrepancy concerning traditional astrological interpretations, and indeed, there is always duality to be considered when dealing with these kind of symbols. Year of the Rat. The archetype of the Year of the Rat demonstrates the ability to collect, save, and then finally utilize resources for personal projects that contribute to enhancing social unity among all peers. Due to the socializing desires which constitute this sign, the people born within this year often see themselves as pioneers in their field who have been deliberately selected to lead the way towards new forms of creative expression, which can become the trends for tomorrow. Along with this ability to foresee the artistic trends of tomorrow's world, the rat also believes it has the advantage in perception, which enables them to size people up from the situations taking place around them. In order to correctly utilize the social resources available to them from the prevailing situation, the rat attempts to anesthetize his opponents with a dose of personal charm, which can lead to a profitable circle of friends, whom the rat will nurture regularly, both for the purpose of common companionship and as well as to help in the effort in achieving its personal aims. Despite this determined disposition, the rat nonetheless is known to be an affectionate comrade who is also gifted with a keen understanding and valuable intuition about the nature of people and the need for circles of friendships to be garnered. For this matter, on the domestic scene, the rat can be a strong catalyzing force in the family, who reinforces personal ties through the sacrifice of their own resources. This is why those born in the year of the rat can be understood as the king of the clan. For all of the rat's interest in culture and people, however, there can emerge a tendency towards outright manipulation through the very force of charm that was initially the tool by which a given relationship may have been founded on. This is where a confusing case of deception may set in, where some of these people may misuse and twist the meaning of words in order to convolute the conversation and subjugate the situation into their favor. This is where a negative game of one-upmanship may emerge ever so subtly, so as not to disrupt their misguided plan, and to continue to maneuver their circle of friends into a psychological submission for the service of their own materialistic motives. Year of the Ox. The second archetype of the Year of the Ox demonstrates the ability to persevere through circumstances to achieve personal stability. According to the attitude of the people born under this sign, the means by which this achievement of personal stability is attained is a critical lesson with respect to the rights of those around them, and is of paramount importance with regards to the ox's social functionality. The determination of these people to acquire their own personal base of operations can lead to an unyielding and inflexible personal rigidity, which is burdensome to all of those in their presence. The high moral and intellectual standards, which these people pretend to advocate, can also lead to condescending remarks, which are merely designed to desecrate and demote the intelligence and free will of the people they may imagine themselves to be battling with, in the struggle towards total environmental domination. Despite this personal front, the ox nonetheless carries out its work quietly, in a steady and methodical manner, which reflects their desire to embellish their environment with a logical and orderly pattern of activity that is fabricated specifically for their own manipulation. For this matter, it is said that it is they, among all of the members of the 12 Chinese year signs, that cannot withstand the idea of being told what to do, especially by those who they may consider below them. This is, of course, the extreme case indeed. Because of this, they are often considered stingy in their affections towards others, since it is their own personal authority which they are hoping to promote in most all situations. Because the ox is a traditionalist, he believes that he provides the intended way of our forefathers' vision, and will make no haste in asphyxiating his version of morality upon the course of any social circle. Despite this suffocating presence of many ox personalities, they nonetheless like to glean their own brand of charm upon a circle of associates whom he may consider to be on his level. There in those circles he expects his reputation to be supported in the same polished and unblemished manner, from which he promotes his authoritative and supposedly accomplished character. In other words, he feels he deserves the respect of those he respects, and for that matter he can be considered an elitist. This doesn't mean that there is ever a shortage of clever personal charm and humor that can bring ordinary people together under a protective social umbrella, which will promise many some degree of security and friendship if sticking to the task of the ox's authority is to be accomplished.